Okay, we're on.
Good morning and welcome to the Muscatine County Board of Supervisors meeting. Today is Monday, November 22nd, 2021, and it is 9 a.m. The first item on the agenda is to review the agenda.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
A motion by Jeff, seconded by Scott. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Any opposed? All right, 5-0. The next item is items with the Planning and Zoning Administrator, Eric Furness. And the first item is discussion and possible action to approve the resolution 11-22-21-01 and the approval of a combined preliminary plat of a D and M subdivision.
I believe you all had a copy of the plat and development report in your packets. This is fairly simple, two-lot agricultural subdivision. All the property remains zoned A1 agricultural. Subdivision was required because there had been a previous split of the original quarter section before. This allows the owner to split off an existing shed from the house and a couple other accessory structures. Everything meets the lot size requirements for the A1 district, the frontage, width, depth. They did enlarge the back property line a little bit to provide for proper setbacks from the patio and some of the areas there that weren't met previously from the existing property line. So kind of cleaned up some things as well as providing for a split of the large storage structure on the property. The zoning commission did recommend unanimously approval of the subdivision. There were existing drives for both buildings as well, so there's no new drives.
So they're private drives on their own.
Yep. Yep.
So this is not for an expansion of another home.
No, everything remains zoned agricultural. It doesn't allow any other residential development, commercial development, that type of thing. It just splits two buildings, the house from the large pole structure.
And both buildings have water and septic and,
There's no septic
Yes.
on the storage building.
There's no water there either, is there?
Nothing. No.
Yeah.
All you can use is storage.
so the
Yeah,
building
so
is,
electric.
the building is just electric and
Yep.
gas.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And if you look at that lot where the shed's at, it's a bit deceiving, because it looks like there's a substantial amount of property there to the east, and obviously there is, but it's not property that you can even build an expansion on, because it drops off into that drainage right there.
There's a creek right there too.
Yeah, so it's a little bit deceiving to people if they just look at it on paper and don't really know what it looks like.
Yeah. And even if there was buildable space, any future residential development would require additional zoning steps, especially.
Unless it was agricultural.
Correct, but with a 3.2 acre or 3.3 acre lot with no farm activity on it, you're not likely to qualify for farm exemption.
Okay,
Right.
to Build a house.
okay.
Okay,
I
I would
have no
move to
issue.
approve.
I would second.
Motion by Jeff, seconded by Scott. Any further discussion? Hearing none, this is a roll call vote. Nathan? Aye. Doug?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
I vote aye. And Jeff?
Aye.
All right. 5-0 on that. The next item is discussion and possible action to approve 11-22-21-02, the approval of the combined preliminary final plat on the Deer View Acres addition.
Okay, this is a three-lot residential subdivision just south of West Liberty on Elder Avenue. There's currently one existing residential structure and a detached garage on the property. This plat would provide for two additional buildable residential lots as well as two small outlots. Outlots are not buildable lots. They are typically reserved for green space. In this case, the intention is to provide some buffer for one existing neighbor to the south to purchase an outlot just to increase the size of his property a little bit. And then outlot A, there's some negotiation between Mr. Perizic, the owner developer, and West Liberty Country Club, who needs to replace their septic system for their clubhouse. So outlot A has kind of been set aside by Mr. Perizic, should they want to purchase that or by some other arrangement to use. They've gone through the design with a wastewater engineer, and so that's the purpose of outlot A. You will see Two Dogs Lane is platted as a subdivision entrance street with a cul-de-sac. I just want to note the zoning commission did approve the platting of that roadway right now, but not the requirement to hard surface it at this time, since there's only gonna be 2 additional houses. But it will be properly platted, and they did note as part of their approval that any further subdividing into smaller or more numerous lots would require surfacing up to our residential subdivision standards. This is a very minor subdivision, as you can see, and so they felt that was an appropriate compromise, as long as it was platted, so that any time in the future, there is space there to put a proper cul-de-sac and street in. But the plan by the developers to just surface it with aggregate right now, packed aggregate, but not seal coated.
Do we have requirements for that if we were to say, okay, our housing addition is only, I'm gonna say 3 or 4 versus like 20?
So we don't have, currently, we don't separate minor or major subdivisions. Some counties do, some don't, where they have specified different standards. Our subdivision ordinance is, you can seal coat if it's under 40 lots, but if it's over 40, then it's concrete roads, surfaces. But we don't, that's really the only difference, is anything over 40 has to be concrete, where under 40 lots can be seal coated. But we've not.
But we don't have anything like 5 or under or something?
No,
like
not specified.
Okay.
No. A lot of times when we see these 1 or 2, they don't even have a subdivision street. They'll be, 2, 3 lots that have their own entrance onto a road. Even with only 3 in this location, we thought it was more appropriate to make sure that they had a common entrance, because we didn't really, it's not really a good location to be adding multiple entrances onto Elder. This at least make sure that there's one entrance off of Elder for all 3 of the lots.
Well, these are fairly big lots, correct?
Yeah,
This is
I mean,
2 or 3 acre lots?
one of them is 6.86 acres, where I believe that's where Mr. Perizic wants to build a new home for himself, and then the other 2 are just slightly over 1 acre. 1 acre is the minimum for lot sizes for R1.
Okay.
So with the conditions of the road surfacing, or not requiring to hard surface it, the zoning commission will plat as well.
I'll move for the approval. I appreciate the comment on the outlots. That was my question today, what was going on with those and who was managing them long term. So, very good.
Second.
Jeff makes a motion with Doug on a second. I do have one more question. So that outlot that you talked about that would go to the country club, how do we control that if they're gonna end up, is that for a septic field? And then they would eventually go through us as well too, to make sure that that meets the elevations and.
They've already begun that process. I've met out there a couple times with them, when it was discovered that their septic kind of discharged onto Mr. Perizic's property. It didn't meet standards for wastewater treatment. They've employed a licensed wastewater engineer who's designed the system. We have those specs. The last step is just for them to actually purchase outlot. I can't approve a site plan for a septic that doesn't,
If they
on
don't,
the ground that
okay.
doesn't belong to them.
Okay, so
But yeah,
that'll
they-
eventually come through potentially, okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you for the information. All right, so we have a motion by Jeff, a second by Doug. This is a roll call vote. This is for the plot for the Deerview Acres. Nathan, how do you vote? Aye. Doug?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
I vote aye. And Jeff?
Aye.
All right. Resolution approved, thank you. All right, we're moving on to item number 4. This is items with the county engineer, Keith White. The first item is discussion and possible action to approve the resolution numbered 11-22-21-03 to award the bid for the BRS-SWAP CO70-SE-70.
Well, the summary of the red bids was in your packet with Jim Schroeder Construction being low at 538, 884, 36. That's it. This being a swap project, it has to be let through the DOT, and they do not ever reveal their estimate, not even to us, but you have to assume this is, it used to seem to always be true, it would be an acceptable number if it even comes forward to us, although the one we rejected earlier, that came back, they sent it to us even though it was outrageous, and when we relet it and shaved a couple $100,000. But anyway, we do our own number, and this is a good number by our math. So, couple good bids on here. Iowa Bridge and Culvert was not real far behind, so we would recommend awarding that. And again, the purpose of the resolution is all the signatures are electronic now, so passing that authorizes me to sign the contract documents on your behalf.
So I'll move the approval.
All right, keep it on this, once this award is bid, is, we looking at this next year in 2022?
Yeah, I don't remember what the late start date on this is. But yes, and it's our, happens to be the same contractor that's finishing up north of Nichols now, so
Okay, good.
doubt we won't get signed and get started this calendar year, but I imagine they'll be there in the spring.
All right, thank you. All right, so we have a motion by Jeff, a second by Scott. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by
Roll
aye.
call.
Well, there's a roll call vote?
Yes, sorry, it doesn't
Oh, I
say
didn't
that
see
on
that.
there, but it is.
Okay, all right. Again, this is a roll call vote. Nathan? Aye. Doug?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
I vote aye, and Jeff?
Aye.
All right. Okay, moving on to item B. This is discussion and possible action to approve the motor grader purchases.
Yes, and we were proposing two. Couple things to note about this is, this is the last of, we've been looking at the 7-year buybacks, which these are, and this is the last of the better numbers. I guess I didn't say it on here, but I'm gonna tell you, these are probable trades. We are going to see if somebody else would give us more money. The odds of that I don't think are good, but it's worth the effort. Cat appraised them in the past, Cat always was giving us more money than the guaranteed buybacks. In our last 4 or 5, what they would give us would be less than the buyback. So we say, we'll execute the buyback, and there's a couple things, there's several things driving that. These machines, are so modern, they're the Tier 4 engines. In the past, there was quite a market to take a used motor grader and send it overseas, and now you got engines that are not environmentally friendly, or they're very environmentally friendly, but the rest of the world doesn't do it like we do. So that market's just pretty well gone. And the other thing that's happened with the advent of GPS is there's less demand for motor graders. It used to be the only way you could get a good finish grade was with the motor grader. Now you stick a couple GPS points on your dozer blade and you can fine grade with the dozer. So both those things are impacting price. it's really became a more specialized piece of equipment than it ever was, so. But we're still, the net prices we're looking at here are still in the neighborhood we thought we were gonna pay. And these were up 5.45%. I'm hearing from Cat January 1 and July 1, there'll be more price increases, so we'd like to get these ordered. And I should further add that the June 22 delivery date is a really crush your fingers. They're telling me they're 30 weeks out for sure, and that will not get better, it might get worse. So this is kind of getting out ahead of it while we can.
See, I'll move the approval.
We have a motion by Jeff,
Second.
second by Doug. I have one question. Keith, you talked about trading them in or trying to trade it or sell them on your own. How would you do that?
I think we'll probably explore several options. One is to offer a used equipment dealer, can you get more money than this with your commission? We've actually, I should be clear, we've actually asked that before, and so far they've never been able to come back and better this number. But we'll ask that again, and then we may put it out on Gov Deals or Purple Wave or one of those sites and see if there's anybody. And we do get around from the other counties occasionally. We have this piece of equipment for sale and for this, and we may, I said there are counties that would love to have our machine, that if they're in the need, they
Well,
might
if the market's
pay
there, demand, that's why I didn't know if you had a process that you were utilizing right now, or if there was something that.
We're gonna look at all three and just use that as a learning curve, if you will. It's a 50-50 ball at the best, I think. And the good news is Cat will work with us on, you wanna trade it, you don't wanna trade it, so.
Okay. All right. We have a motion by Jeff, a second by Doug. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. All right, 5-0. Okay, moving on to item number C. This is a discussion and possible action to approve the tandem truck purchases.
Yes, and the number we have here is from H&L Truck Sales of Mediapolis, who's a Mack dealer and actually who's been doing our warranty, our servicing here for the last year or so. We did go far and wide with Mack to, Houseby Mack in Des Moines or Quincy Mack. And, initially we're coming up with nobody having anything. H&L got a couple build spots in the fourth quarter of next year, so this is what we're talking about here. We're talking about the next budget, even though we've got two in this budget. And I might mention Twin Bridges in the Quad Cities, who we had dealt with a lot of years. Things had been a little strange there lately, and we got a letter in the mail, actually Saturday, that they're selling December 1, which probably explains a lot of their behavior over the last year. After 60 years, we were kind of looking like, either something's gonna change or you can close the doors. So they are selling to like an outfit out of Omaha, I believe. So, anyway, this is one where I spoke a week or two ago about, opportunities when we have them. So.
Are there any trades, Keith, on these?
There, at this, yes, yes and no. They are not identified on here, cause we're gonna play the same, this is far enough out, we're gonna play the same game for what we do with trades. I could tell you, like on the pickups, where we quoted about 5 things and we're seeing really good numbers. That's what we'll be looking at here, but I think the 2 oldest, I didn't put them, did I put them in my notes? I did not, cause we had that down. The two older ones, we have one really old truck that might go as a trade, and that's the one that we haul riprap in, so we may take one of the newer, older ones and put a riprap body on it. But again, we've normally seen really good numbers for the trades.
So these are, cab and chassis, will we be putting like snow bodies on it, snow?
These will be snow fighters.
Okay.
And this is amazingly only at 2.83%.
Yeah, I said, I thought this number looked pretty consistent with what we've typically seen.
I was really surprised there. We have asked, we're in the need to purchase some pipe, metal pipe, and we had asked our supplier there. I mean, they had a big powwow down in Jefferson City, Missouri, and they're expecting the price of steel to remain kind of stable, because it's gone up a lot.
Yeah.
But that's hard to say, but since a lot of steel goes into making these things, again, this is another, take the opportunity while we can.
I'll move for the approval.
Okay, we have a motion by Jeff,
Second.
second by Doug. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. All right, 5-0. Okay, the next item is projects update.
Yes, couple things. On the design side, we got a couple bridges that we need to get soil borings on, so we can finish up design on those. And one that isn't exactly our project, but Stewart Road, the railroad crossing to the south, which had gotten pretty rough. Mid-American is working with us and with Brian on to kind of redo that crossing, I guess, basically is the answer. So, I mean, I'm sure anybody that comes north there or has to go south out of the county would welcome that once it happens. Most everything else is just on track, on design, on construction. I said the bridge north of Nichols, that's Jim Schroeder Construction. They did the majority of the dirt work last week and hope to finish up this week. And so they would have erosion control to do on that, and then guardrail. So hopefully we'll get that project finished up. And the only other one we have a contract out there is 171st Street, which we let back in August, and that's gonna start next spring. First thing probably on that, there's a box culvert, which is also Schroeder is the subcontractor to hire. So, questions on that? Hey, other, I have a couple things.
Yep.
Just talk on the equipment purchasing again. I didn't bring, cause we're still examining a few things, but we had in the budget a mower, tractor, and we do have a quote from Tiger via Sourcewell. And if you wanted to know about Sourcewell, if if you look it up, you can read more than I can ever tell you, but it is a consortium that it's like a super state contract. They actually have stuff on the Iowa state contract, but Sourcewell is lower than the Iowa contract. And it includes like Minnesota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, and they gather together bids and they bid these things. So that's, once we figure something out on more tractor, we'll be bringing that to you. And the way, if we were to do that, the way Sourcewell works, and again, the way this contract with Tiger works, it'd be a John Deere tractor, and I forget the buzzword, but Sinclair gets credit for the sale of the tractor.
You get a dirt servicing fee, a dealer servicing
Yeah,
fee.
yeah, I forget what they call it, there's a term for it, so. That's in the works for soon, and then a biggie that may or may not be important to you all, but at the US level, Senate File S.3011, S.3011. County Engineers Executive Board met Friday morning. I attended via Zoom because they were going to talk about the upcoming federal bill and how that might be handled. Didn't learn a lot there. The DOT presented a timeline that about next June, if they follow their timeline, they'll tell us how much of that they're gonna throw down to us poor folks. So, I mean, they're gonna gather facts and gather facts for a month or two, crunch facts, send them out to hear what people think, give it preliminary to the commission, and then mess around some more, and then about June, they're gonna recommend what the split of the bucks is to the commission. So you will probably get more update on that. But back to Senate File S.3011. That is a bill in the United States Senate that says, let's let you use some of this ARPA, COVID money for infrastructure. The DOT and the county engineers have asked that we support this bill. And again, I didn't print it out. You can go online and read it and lawyer it up yourself. But it basically says you can spend up to 10 million or 30% of the money that's spent on infrastructure if it passes. They're really hoping it would pass. In some cases, because some entities might be getting 100 million, so they could spend 30 million on infrastructure. But in a lot of cases, entities have already promised that money out to other things. I only bring it up here because when we first talked about it, at least one of you said, let's build bridges. So if that passes, that would be a possibility. So.
And we won't know that until next June, is that correct?
No, I'm sorry, I confused the two.
Well, that was a different.
I confused the new infrastructure bill with this bill, which is talking about the 8 point whatever million of COVID money you got here.
Okay,
That you could decide to,
okay, so
Do we have any idea of a timeline for that one?
no. It last did anything in the Senate in October, but again, the DOT was really, their reps were really big that, contact Ernst and Grassley, Senators Ernst and Senator Grassley, and ask them to support this bill, which, that's the background on that. And I often say in here that the representatives, in my opinion, tend to pay more attention to other electeds' opinions than they do mine. So, I mean, I will contact them, but if you're so choose,
This would be a good bill to support.
would this, would Nancy, would that be something that the board should consider sending a letter, to our representative, to Senator Grassley and Senator Ernst's office?
If you're interested in,
If you're, yeah,
Supporting this bill, we can certainly
supporting
do
the
that.
allocation of those funds. I think that would make a good.
Well, it would make more sense because it does say infrastructure, which it is.
Right. And, you know, as we've said before, you know, short of roads and bridges, we're not sure what all good
and-
uses we
and as Santos just said, it says infrastructure, so it gives you a lot more flexibility on what infrastructure you would wish to support.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
Okay, so do you want me to just write a letter and have Santos sign it, or do you want me to write a letter and have it put on the agenda for next week?
What would be the appropriate, do we need to, does it need to come to the back before the board, or can we just?
Nope, if by consensus you direct me to write a letter of support and have Santos
Yeah,
sign
I
it,
would-
we're good
I
there.
would say,
Can we do one for each one?
What?
For each grassland first?
Yes.
I'm in support of that. Are you guys okay with
Absolutely.
that? Okay. Make sure we
Okay,
have
I'm
to
hearing
use
by
it.
consensus, I'll draft a letter for Santos to sign and get sent.
Okay.
that's all I have,
Right.
barring any questions on. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Keith.
Okay, moving on to item number 5, which is discussion and possible action to approve the minutes November 15th, 2021's regular meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion by Scott, seconded by Jeff. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Aye. All right, 5-0. Correspondence, Nathan?
So other than the, COVID update and the correspondence we all regularly get, I did not have anything else.
Okay. All right, Doug?
Same.
Okay. Scott?
I had the same emails and nothing else to note.
Okay. I had a small get together with MPW on a request for some of their updates from the Nova 7 that they're looking at. They shared about some areas that they were looking at for broadband expansion and the potential if the board would be interested in reviewing any information in regards to ARPA dollars. And I shared with them that that would be something that we would have a discussion in the upcoming months as we look at West Liberty and Wilton, and maybe having a request to have them do a presentation to the board, and we would find out more information in regards to how we would start looking at that award. So I would have that discussion, and once we understand the process that I've looked at and requested with Nancy in this upcoming couple weeks, and then further on, we start looking at maybe what those requests are. So nothing that we could make a decision on soon. I also had the email in regards from Nancy in regards to the cyber insurance that we're looking at, which was good information from Bill. Then I got a call on a car up on Pettibone that had been there for a couple days, and then reached out to the sheriff, and they picked it up right away, so that was good. That's all I have for correspondence.
I had nothing to note.
Okay. Committee reports. Nathan?
I did not have any.
Okay. Doug?
Wednesday, the 17th, was Wilton Development at noon. They've got another house sold on that rural 360 and another lot, so it's moving forward. They're doing
How
really
many
well.
have they got so far on that? 3? Is this?
I think we're
four
on
or
5.
That's awesome. Awesome.
really
Done
is.
really good.
Yep. And then Thursday, the 18th at 7 was Fair Board meeting in West Liberty. And that's all the committee reports I had.
Okay, on Wednesday the 17th, I had Riverbend Transit and Randy Zobers gave some information out in regard to the future of the buses and vessels of transportation, talking about electric buses. And currently, this is something that I just wasn't aware of. Currently, a new bus costs approximately $80,000. An electric bus, the potential guesstimate on that is $200,000 to $250,000. But here's the kicker on it. The kicker is because of the charge times and so on and so forth for the electric buses and the downtime to get them charged and so on and so forth, you have to have 2 for 1.
Oh, well,
So
that's a good
you've
buy
got,
there,
you've
right?
got, to potentially cover the same route, you have to have an investment of, instead of 1 driver and 1 machine that cost $80,000 for the machine, you have to have 2 drivers and 2 machines, with the cost of the machines sounds to be substantially over $400,000 and maybe as much as $500,000. So there's a big hurdle in the future on many aspects of this. It was a real eye opener for me. What I didn't realize is you had to have 2 for 1 to be able to transport the necessary routing. So that was pretty educational for me.
Who makes the decision on something like that, to purchase that? Is that your board?
The board would, but I mean, I don't know how across the county, across the state, across the country. I'm not sure how that's gonna work very well.
Well, the rural transit has had so many funding challenges in the last 10 to 12 years. I can't imagine how you can double the asset cost and have them still survive.
I don't either.
And
I don't
provide
either.
the level of service that people have come to expect, so. Randy's got a challenge yet.
There's an uphill battle on that one, yes. Also on Wednesday, the 17th,
Go ahead, Nathan.
go ahead.
John, I was gonna say one thing really quick. Yeah, on the buses, one thing we did in the school system, was get propane buses, and you gotta have a sufficient number in your fleet to make it worthwhile. As I recall, the cost was right in that $80,000-$90,000 range. They're significantly more reliable in cold weather and the like, you don't have to start them up quickly, so it might be something to pass on. I don't know if it'll work for them, obviously, but just a thought.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, very good, thank you. On Wednesday, the 17th also was Board of Health, and on Wednesday, the 17th as well was Bi-State. Thursday, the 18th, they had a special Conservation Board meeting down at Deep Lakes to have the group, Adrian was down from Bolton and Mink, and just to look at the proposed area on the north end of, they're just off of 41st Street and Stewart Road, would kind of let you know what corner we're speaking of, and had a couple potential markups of camping areas that are being looked at. We have a conservation meeting tonight, and there'll be more discussion on this, but it was really interesting to me to take that walk back in there and to be able to put campsites in there and the infrastructure it'll take to operate this. But it's just a beautiful location for this, and I'm pretty excited about it because I know the utilization of it will be, the demand will be high, I'll just put it that way.
One of the things that comes to mind as I think about that off 41st, 41st is gravel in that section, as I recall, between Stewart and Pettibone, correct?
Yeah,
Is that one that this board would wanna consider and talk to conservation on, whether we consider going to a seal coat or some other kind of a surface if we're gonna get that kind of traffic in there?
I think that is definitely a talking point.
And that might be something the board would look to, you know, as we consider, cause I think there's consideration on how we might get and what we might do for funding wise to get, services down there. And, you know, I think it would be short-sighted of us not to consider the road going in there as we looked at that.
Especially after the services have been installed and so on.
Yeah.
And the potential of additional, stages of this construction on this particular one initially is approximately 50 campsites is what this is initially on the north end. But there's a substantial amount of area where there's potential for up to maybe 150 on that upper end, and
On top of that?
100 on top of this.
Okay,
This is
all right,
approximately
all right,
50.
wow, yeah.
So, so you could have a couple areas of growth there, and the beauty of this location down here is that in high water situations, it will not be affected. And so when you have all the areas in the county that have campsites, obviously a tremendous amount of them are along the river and so on and so forth, and they're unable to utilize those. Where in this application, you would have the ability to use this, you know. But this will be very well received, flood no flood, because it's just such a great location there, such a great location. But there'll be more discussion on this this evening, and more input. And but your point is well taken, Jeff. You know.
We've heard the county engineer in the past talk about some of the traffic that some of these subdivisions in the county have added to some of our gravel roads, which are really not designed for those kind of counts. You get 150, you have potentially 150 campsites, and the daily traffic that'll road add to that little stretch of road, because I can't imagine 41st gets 50 cars a day, if that. Maybe you start quadrupling that, you're starting to talk, and then it's in a short duration, right?
Yeah.
So there would be a lot of activity. Just something to think about it, you know, as I think about it.
Yeah,
You have to think about the construction process too.
absolutely,
Thinking
absolutely.
about the aesthetics of it a little bit, makes it a little more attractive.
Yeah. So that's all I had.
Okay.
Excellent, good. Well, that's real good information. On Tuesday the 16th, I was in on a meeting with the committee for a community health assessment that they had done, and basically this is what they look at for the 2022, and they do a survey with all those in the meeting, and then you pick through what's the number 1, 2, and 3 that the community needs for future health. And number 1 was access to health. That came back, and that is going to be their number 1 focus as far as what they're going to be focusing on in this group. And that again, this is with Erica from the hospital and their team, Christy Roby Williams. The number 2 item was diabetes, and that'll be their next item. And I think the 3rd one was mental health. And so my understanding is that this group now then works together, and then they'll start focusing on in the next couple of weeks, providing a plan and how they're going to start focusing on making the goal on hopefully coming up with some sort of solutions for that. On the 18th, I had a bi-state with the Trails Committee, and a lot of interesting things that came through the state that we had presentation on that would be focusing on future trails in the state. One of them was that they had passed a bill that if the sales tax get increased, there's 3/8 of a cent that would have a percentage that goes to trails. Right now there's 1.6 million in grants. This would increase that up to 20 million. They did comment that since it's an election year, that they don't know if the governor would actually pass that, but that was an interesting piece on the bi-state for trails. And then on the 19th, I had the ARPA meeting with the city and the county and the school. The city's looking at doing a future comprehensive plan for their upcoming year. That will probably be a pretty large investment for them in regards to their comprehensive plan. Also, the housing study that they wanna do for the overall city and the county. I think that was something that we had asked in regards to finding out what that cost would be for the county portion, or at least for those cities that would be contributing, which would be West Liberty and Wilton, if there is a cost associated with that. Other than that, that's all I have for meetings, committee reports. Jeff?
On the 15th, we had the Eastern Iowa Mental Health Region Governing Board meeting. And on the 19th, we had the Eastern Iowa Mental Health Special Meeting for the Governing Board. We authorized the signing of the allocation of the approximately $3 million in funds to add all the children's services to the mental health region contract with Robert Young Center. So it's put into crisis beds and counseling and a number of other things. I think one of the things that they found very effective in some trials were help with law enforcement for mental health services in crisis. And so we are expanding our funding of that throughout the region now. It started with some trials in Clinton and such, and they found that that's a good is to get them out with law enforcement to get connected to people early before we have too many troubles. So that happened on the 19th. That's it.
Okay. All right.
And I think on the mental health, we'd said, we have to pool resources, and it sounded like our staff and mental health staff has had a meeting in the last week or so, and they're working through the procedures. The plan will be to start paying bills through the region, at least in a trial basis, before we have to do it July 1st, so that's moving forward too.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Nathan, did I get you for committee reports? I'm sorry, I don't know if I did.
You asked him first.
Okay, my bad, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
All right. Okay, moving on to item number 8 then. Items with the administration office. And the first item is action to accept the November 21st payroll claims.
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Jeff,
Second.
second by Scott. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. All right, 5-0. Okay, any other items?
I don't have anything else.
Okay. Number 9, this is receive information from county employees. All right.
I failed to mention the representatives on Region 9. If you saw the reminders, there's a survey out there, and I don't know if you responded, but one has, speaking with the Scott County engineer, we were going to ask, Angie's going to ask that they push that date out a couple months. Again, we were hoping that the technical representatives could actually put our heads together before trying to drive this thing ahead too hard, so. I don't know if that'll happen, but she was gonna be emailing Gina about that, so.
I did get that and gave my feedback on that survey. I mean, I have not heard anything back from Gina. I'll follow up as I chair that committee. I agree with you there. I don't see any reason to rush it. We're allocating funds 3 years out in that process anyway, so it's not I would hate to have a rush. And as I've heard you caution many times, that those that are pushing for the change in the allocation formula based on a purely objective system are gonna lose. Because the counties will have a much greater demonstrated need, and on the scoring system, the counties will take all the money. And that's probably not what has been happening in the past. They've been sharing it, so sometimes you have to watch what you wish for.
Oh, wow, okay. All right, any other information from county employees? All right,
Eric, did you have anything you wanted? Okay.
all right, any comments from the public? All right, any other items for the good of the board? All right, hearing none, it is 9:49 a.m. and meeting is adjourned.